Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and if you're on a wildcard for Game Week 4, this is the video for you. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're going to run through 3 variations on a wildcard draft, which I really like going into Game Week 4. One of which has Mo Salah in it, one has Haaland in it, and one has both of them in it. So whichever variation you prefer, I've hopefully got that covered in this video. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and importantly, subscribe to the channel as we're chasing down 5,000 subscribers at the moment. And it's also important to mention that each of these wildcard variations are pretty flexible with chip strategy moving forward. So I think with the first wildcard draft in particular, free hit in Game Week 6 does make a bit more sense because you don't have Haaland in it. However, it is fairly flexible and there's a lot of depth on the bench in each of these variations, so you can look at bench boosting in any given game week technically, but there are some that it favors a little bit more. Now let's have a look at the goalkeepers and defense on wildcard draft number 1. I'll spend a little bit longer on this one because there's a few duplicate players going into the other 2 drafts. So bear with me on the first one as I explain my reasoning. In goal, I've got Dubravka on my bench most weeks as the 4.0, the only playing 4.0, so I think it makes a lot of sense. And like I said, with a bench boost, if you've got that in your back pocket, any week that Burnley have a decent enough fixture with okay odds of a clean sheet, Dubravka is easily bench boostable. Now, Raya is my playing keeper most weeks. The next 3 fixtures, not ideal. Man City and Newcastle in there. But Nottingham Forest is a good fixture at home for Arsenal. Obviously, they've just lost their manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, so they might be in flux. And Raya is the keeper who plays for the best defence in the league, statistically at least. So over a long run, you're going to want some Arsenal defensive coverage, especially come Game Week 7. This is just saving a transfer down the line. And because I'm not as keen on Arsenal defenders as I was in previous seasons, because other defenders from other teams have the benefit of DEFCON, it seems like an easy way to just cover off the Arsenal defence to begin with. Raya in. He is a bit expensive, but it saves you a transfer for another Arsenal defender down the line if you didn't want to double up on the defence. So Raya makes sense, and over the long term, I think he's going to be a fantastic keeper, keeping clean sheets at regular intervals. Moving into my back line, I've actually gone with 5 at the back that are playable in any given game week. I wouldn't expect to be playing 5 at the back every single week, by the way. I've gone with Cucurella as my most expensive defender. I think his upside is incredible. He looks brilliant this season so far as well. And Chelsea's fixtures are still pretty decent. They're one of the best defences in the league. Cucurella also has a load of attacking threat, so routes to points other than defensive contributions. But at 6.1 million, I still think it's good to cover off the Chelsea defence. And he's a little bit of a differential when it comes to people selecting a wildcard draft at the moment that I've seen in the community anyway. So he's one that would sneak in. You could look at maybe going Gabriel and doubling up on Arsenal to begin with, or Van Dijk. But Van Dijk in the Liverpool defence, they haven't looked too tight at the back yet. And Gabriel, would you want to double up on Arsenal defenders or defence yet, considering they've got 2 pretty poor fixtures in the next 3 game weeks? Moving across, I've gone with double Crystal Palace defence at the moment, but that second defender, Richards, could be any other 4.5. Both of these are good on the defensive contributions. Palace is a good defence, and of course they've got 2 good fixtures right off the bat against Sunderland and West Ham, so I like having that coverage there, and Lacroix in particular seems like the standout defender at 5 million. Moving across, Anderson and Senesi, both defensive contribution monsters, and because of that, can be playable in any given game week. Senesi in particular has been racking up DEFCON points like they're going out of fashion. So Senesi is easily playable in any fixture. I've been impressed with the Bournemouth defence as well, and Fulham are historically a tight defence. Anderson should be able to get DEFCONs in a lot of the games as well, and he's got a little bit of attacking threat too. So overall, this back 5 I think is really solid. You can play any of them in any given game week, and they'll rotate fairly nicely over a long period of time. They don't cost a lot of money either, so it means that I've got a bit more money to spend in my forward and midfield lines. Moving into my midfield on wildcard draft number 1, and this might be a good time to mention that I do actually have 0.3 in the bank with this draft, and my team value is pretty poor. I'm under 100 million, so you should be able to afford this fairly comfortably, and in certain circumstances, if you've got good team value, you might even be able to make a little upgrade here or there. So Anderson might be able to become Reinders if you wanted to, just as an example. However, starting off with Mo Salah, I did mention I'm going to have a wildcard draft video with each combination. So one with Salah, one with Haaland, and one with both. This is the Salah one. I don't really need to talk too much about Mo Salah. He's not been in great form just yet, but it is Mo Salah. He's got Burnley next up, then Everton after that. So if you've not lost faith in him yet, this might be the wildcard draft for you. He does cost a lot of money though, so I understand why others might look at wildcard draft number 2 or number 3 as an alternative strategy to cover off Man City and Haaland instead. But Burnley away for Salah, he would probably be my captain in this draft, and for the next couple of game weeks seems like a very good option to have. Bruno Fernandes has snuck in here. He is a player that I would consider looking at downgrading to someone like a Cody Gakpo, maybe even Wirtz if you haven't lost faith in him yet. But I just think if you're on a wild card, you want to save future transfers, I just feel like Fernandes is someone you can rely on and take to the bank any single game week against any opposition, and you're going to get something from him more often than not. He has penalties. He plays 90 minutes a match. He's got some set pieces. He's still got some attacking threat from open play. I know he's dropping a bit deeper, but he was getting chances in the last couple of matches. Man City, fine. Low chance of an attacking return, but he should get DEFCON. Same with Chelsea after that. Long term, over a season or over a half a season period, Fernandes is most likely going to come out above most other midfielders, and he's a good captaincy option in certain specific game weeks. Game week 7, for example, when they go up against Sunderland. So he is someone that I try to include on a wild card just to save me from rushing to get back to him at a later point. But I completely understand if others would look at downgrading that position to someone like Gakpo, doubling up on the Liverpool midfield and attacking the next couple of fixtures with Burnley and Everton to come. So no problem there whatsoever. Moving across, I do have Semenyo in there as well. I just think he's in the form of his life at the moment. Shot volumes through the roof. And even last season, he was a great FPL asset. I think he's taken another step up. What I would note is he isn't on penalties or many set pieces, if any. So I would say his routes to points are fairly limited. It's mainly reliant on open goal threat. I think at 7.4 million, that's absolutely fine. But if he got above 8 million at any point, I would start to have a few question marks. Any midfielder above 8 million who doesn't have penalties is someone that maybe I'd start doubting a little bit. So Semenyo is fine for me at 7.4 million. I think he's good value for money still at this price, but just watch out that if he gets to a ridiculous price, he might stop being quite as good value for money. I think with the fixtures to come, they look good. Semenyo looks fantastic. It's just an obvious pickup on a wild card for me right now. Paqueta also comes in as a player on penalties, a bit like Bruno Fernandes, kind of a Bruno Fernandes light, if you will, considering the price and considering the team he's playing for. But at 5.9 million, I think he's just great value for money. He's getting good minutes. He looks like a transformed player this season at West Ham, and the team is revolving around him. So Paqueta at 5.9 million just seems like a sensible pickup. He could get a haul in any given game week because of the penalties. And in the midfield right now, I've got 3 penalty takers, one of which under 6 million. That seems like a pretty good combination for me. And with a penalty taker like Paqueta, you can play him in any given game week and you can always get something out of it, as we've seen so far this season. Anderson also makes it in on my wildcard draft at the moment. Now, I did mention at the start of the video, I'm recording this after Nuno got sacked overnight, so things might start changing at Nottingham Forest. But Anderson's played so well, and he's just got his England call-up. Everyone's taking notice of him. I don't think any manager coming in his right mind would look at Anderson and think, well, that's a player I need to be getting rid of or benching or taking off early. I think his job will remain fairly similar. I still think he's going to pick up DEFCONs in the short to medium term. And although he's not really that playable against Arsenal, look at the depth I've got on my bench already. I don't think I'm going to need to use him in this draft. You could even play 5 at the back and bench him in a 5-4-1 here. So I think you can carry him for 1 game week. And then afterwards, he's got Burnley and Sunderland in 5 and 6. And again, a player like him who's getting good minutes, who's getting defensive contributions at 5.5, that is absolutely fine for me. It is worth noting, though, that I'd also look at a potential combination here, and I'll flash it up on the screen just for illustrative purposes, of upgrading Lacroix and downgrading Anderson. And you might prefer this combination with Dewsbury Hall and Munoz instead. Now, Lacroix-Anderson is kind of the DEFCON combination of the two and the more reliable churn of points, whereas Munoz and Dewsbury Hall might provide a bit more attacking emphasis, but obviously doesn't get as much of the defensive contribution. So if you're looking for upside, then maybe option B is more for you. But I just wanted to showcase both versions in case you preferred the Dewsbury Hall Munoz combination. But that's my midfield 5. Let's have a look at how my forward line is shaping up. So onto my forward line, and no room for Haaland in this draft, but do fast forward to draft 2 or draft 3 where I've included him in both if you did want a Haaland draft. I've gone with Gyökeres to begin with in draft 1. Now, what I would say is I'm not overwhelmed with positivity on how Gyökeres has been performing so far, but it would save a transfer down the line to get him in now. And when you've already hit your wild card, transfers are becoming more and more precious. So it would save a transfer in game week 7 where I'm probably going to want to get to him for a great fixture run for Arsenal. He's on penalties and he looks likely to be getting 90 minutes with Havertz off getting surgery as well at the moment. So his minutes are very secure. The player himself doesn't look like someone who's completely integrated just yet, but there is at least green shoots. He is getting some goals. And against Nottingham Forest at home, it's an okay onboarding point. He's on penalties, so he's got that other route to points. And it is a bit of a price point covered off. Now, what I would say is if you're not convinced on Gyökeres, that's perfectly understandable. You could downgrade him to João Pedro, who also has good fixtures in the medium term, is also getting good minutes and is more of the form pick right now. That would take a lot of money out of the forward line. And what you could do, again, I'll flash it up on screen here, is you could upgrade Paqueta to Gakpo and cover off the Liverpool double in midfield as well. So again, option A versus option B. What you've got in option A is 2 penalty takers, 2 90-minute men. Option B, you've got a little bit more of the form players right now, Gakpo and João Pedro, both playing very well, not on penalties though, and their minutes long-term might not be quite as secure as Paqueta and Gyökeres, especially once Isak is integrated. Gakpo's minutes might start taking a little bit of a dive, either directly or inadvertently through Ekitike taking some minutes at the end of the game or Isak taking some minutes. You just never know. But to begin with, I think Gakpo's absolutely fine and pretty safe, considering he is the best left winger in that squad by quite a distance now. So A versus B there. Let me know which you prefer out of the two. But I think I marginally prefer going with the secure minutes, penalty takers that I can hold on to for long term and won't really have any question marks with, although it is very tight between Gyökeres and João Pedro. Moving across, Mateta just makes a lot of sense on a wild card. 2 good fixtures to begin with, on penalties and good value at 7.5 million. There is an argument to say that maybe his attacking threat takes a bit of a dive without Eze in the side, and Sam looks like he might be out for a little while. But I still think against Sunderland at home, then against West Ham away, it just makes a lot of sense, and I don't want to overthink having Mateta on a wild card. My final pick is Strand Larsen, who is a flag going into game week 4. However, his Newcastle transfer didn't go through. Wolves have a great run of fixtures just round the corner, straight after game week 4 is out of the way. And despite the fact he might not play in game week 4, looking at this side, I can easily either play a 5-4-1 or a 4-4-2 and get away with it without needing Strand Larsen whatsoever. More likely a 4-4-2, actually, considering I've got Mateta and Gyökeres in there. And I absolutely would not need to rely on Strand Larsen away at Newcastle. So I can carry him for a week and then he can come back in game week 5. Absolutely fine. So this is my wildcard draft number 1. It's got 0.3 in the bank, so you should be able to afford it. Let me know what you think, and let's move on to a few variations that enable a Haaland draft. So if you're not quite as bullish on Mo Salah this season and a little bit more leaning towards Erling Haaland and Man City's attacking upside, then draft number 2 might be more your speed. There are 3 differences between draft number 1 and this one. Erling Haaland has of course come in for Strand Larsen, which is a big upgrade in price. It does mean that I've downgraded Mo Salah to Cody Gakpo, another Liverpool player. That is a big downgrade though, let's face it, because Mo Salah's got penalties, guaranteed 90 minutes. Gakpo looks good on the minutes right now and good attacking upside, but longer term might be a little bit more iffy. I still think he should be a regular starter though at left wing because he is the best left winger in that squad. But it does enable Erling Haaland instead of Strand Larsen, which is a huge upgrade. Now to do this, I've also had to downgrade one player in my defense. I've chosen Richards because I've already got Crystal Palace anyway. So instead of doubling up on Palace defense, I've just gone with a single. Senesi now probably plays more often than not in my 11, and Rodon has come onto my bench for most game weeks. It's also worth noting though, with Rodon, Leeds have actually not looked that bad defensively aside from the Arsenal game. So he's playable on a bench boost most weeks as well. I think he's flagged at the moment, so do keep an eye on that. But I wouldn't be looking at playing him this game week anyway. So I think I could probably carry him even if he is flagged, and a doubt for game week 4 in particular. And then afterwards, you could look at bench boosting him as soon as game week 5 when Burnley have a decent fixture. Leeds don't have a bad fixture either. And the rest of the squad looks absolutely fine for a bench boost. So, like I said, bench boost is on the cards quite a few weeks, but definitely game week 5 as well if you wanted to. This one, of course, is if you prefer an Erling Haaland draft. I would be captaining him at home to Man United because I think he's the second best captain this week after Mo Salah marginally. But against Man United, I would have no hesitation in captaining him. The rest of the 15 outside of the 3 players I've just discussed have remained the same. So if you skip forward to this section, that's absolutely fine. But I've discussed the rest of these players in section number 1 for wildcard draft number 1. So if you wanted the logic behind any of these picks, then go back and just have a quick watch of that. It shouldn't take too long. But this one is, of course, for those of you who prefer an Erling Haaland draft, which makes complete sense. He's been in fantastic form at the moment. Looks like everything is funneling through to him in the Man City attack right now. And although Man City themselves haven't been in the best nick at the start of the season, Erling Haaland undoubtedly has. And his XG is miles ahead of any other player in the league right now. In fact, it's ahead of 50% of the teams right now. So I completely understand why you'd go with draft number 2 and Haaland ahead of Salah if you feel like Salah's not quite as involved as last year. Maybe he's not going to provide as good value for money at 14.5 million. That makes complete sense. So I would understand why you would want to have a look at draft number 2. However, there is a draft number 3 with both of them in it, Mo Salah and Erling Haaland, which I actually really like. I'm quite surprised by it. So let's take a look at that and see if that is more up your street. Okay, so draft number 3, this is Mo Salah and Erling Haaland in the same draft, which I didn't think would be that easy to do, or at least it would come with too many sacrifices to make it plausible. However, having done this in practice over the last couple of days and really tried to work this out, I think it is fairly doable, and I actually really quite like this draft. All I would say is it's a little bit inflexible. So if something happens where 2 or 3 midfielders around about the 7 to 9 million price point look absolutely unbeatable and you need to get to them, you're going to have to downgrade one of Salah or Erling Haaland pretty sharpish. So that is the one drawback with a draft like this. So I thought I'd just mention that off the bat. However, on the surface, this looks like a really strong draft to me. I haven't changed the goalkeepers or the defense. So if you've skipped ahead to this section of the video, that's absolutely fine. Go back and check that out very quickly for my logic and all of those picks. Moving into the midfield is where most of the sacrifices have come, though. So Salah has been brought back in ahead of Cody Gakpo from draft number 2. So big upgrade there. I would be captaining Mo Salah away at Burnley just ahead of Erling Haaland away at home to Man United. But those two do actually rotate fairly well for captaincy over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. So there is an argument to go with both here. And you would share the captaincy around Mo Salah probably 4 and 5, Erling Haaland probably 6 and 7. But again, after that, they do rotate fairly well as well. In the midfield, though, I've kept Paqueta, I've kept Anderson, but Undai and Reinders have come in instead of, I think it was Semenyo and Fernandes in the last draft. So it is a big downgrade. You've lost Fernandes, who's a penalty taker, but you've also gained a penalty taker in Undai, obviously from a slightly poorer side. But Undai's been fantastic at the moment. I'm an owner myself. I'm absolutely buzzing with him as an FPL pick. At 6.5 million, I think he's good value for money. And although a lot of people are looking at Jack Grealish, I would say Undai is actually probably marginally the better pick because I think everything that Jack Grealish creates seems to be going towards Undai more often than not. He's got more goal threat, and unlike Jack Grealish, he doesn't have to miss out a game week. I think it's game week 8 when they go up against Man City. Undai is playable. Jack Grealish, unfortunately, is not because he's effectively cup tied, I suppose, against his parent club, Man City. So I do like Undai. You've regained a penalty taker where you've lost one in Bruno Fernandes for a lot cheaper. And then Reinders comes in instead of Semenyo, I would suppose, which is a downgrade, not as much goal threat. And the minutes might start looking a little bit more shaky once Champions League kicks in, but he has been brilliant. Cherky's out for a couple of months, so maybe his minutes are a bit more secure. And at 5.7 million, I still think it's good value for money. And there is enough depth here that you could rotate him in and out with Anderson or with a fourth defender as well if you wanted to. every other week or wherever you feel like he might be a rotation risk. So, okay, downgrade in the midfield, but I still think you've got enough firepower there to make it worthwhile on a wild card. You've got 3 penalty takers in your midfield, and you've got 2 cheap midfielders who should get good minutes. One of them gets good defensive contributions, and the other one has a bit of attacking upside in one of the best attacks in the league. In my forward line, I've still got Erling Haaland and Mateta in there, but I've downgraded Gyökeres to Thiago to make all of this affordable. Now, I've got 0.4 in the bank in this draft, and again, my team value is not great, so you should be able to afford this. And if you wanted to, you might just about be able to upgrade Thiago to Strand Larsen, who's got great fixtures just round the corner. However, conservatively, just in case your team value is not great, I've gone with Thiago, who should be on penalties again. I know Sharda took the last one, but it was a poor penalty. I wouldn't be surprised if Thiago gets it back. And he is playing as a centre forward at Brentford for 6 million. So I think it's good value for money. His minutes should be all right. And I think they're going to persevere with him through the middle. So for me, he's still good value for money at 6 million. But if you've got that little bit extra, I would probably use it on someone like a Strand Larsen if you can, just because I think he's slightly more talismanic for that Wolves side, and their fixtures are slightly better over the long term once Newcastle is out of the way. However, that is my third and final wildcard draft with both Salah and Haaland. I don't think it's sacrificing that much. I think there's plenty of depth, especially with the defenders that we've got at our disposal this season. So let me know what you think. Let me know which of the drafts you prefer and whether you're rocking a Salah, a Haaland, or a both draft, maybe even a neither as well, which I haven't covered today. But let me know if that's something that you would look at doing. And of course, if there are any players that I haven't discussed today, do feel free to drop a comment below and we can have a chat about them ahead of locking in your wildcard sides ahead of Game Week 4. If you did enjoy today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell as well if you don't want to miss out on any future content, and I'll see you next time.